apocalyptic event occurs much later in the story that creates the world to be like a hybrid of, D&D world with dragons and monsters with, modern sci-fi world. So it's
Okay, so you're blending genres.
Right. Yep.
All right, so that'll be the topic of the video. Hey guys, welcome to Inside Comics with George Michail. Really quick, if you like this kind of content, make sure you're subscribed and tell a friend about it. Today, I'm super stoked. I'm joined by Christopher Michael, writer of C.R.I.T. Chris, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So C.R.I.T's a super cool project. The Kickstarter is ending really soon, and we're going to get into that. But before we do, I'd like to talk to you about kind of blending genres, because with C.R.I.T, you're taking science fiction, you're taking fantasy, you're kind of mixing these things together into like an awesome stew of goodness. And I'm wondering, how did you go about that? How did you kind of choose what you wanted to keep and what you wanted to kind of ignore in the two genres?
It was tough at first because we've been playing. So C.R.I.T is based off of a Dungeons and Dragons game that we created on our own. It's a homebrewed D&D game, and I took elements of like Mass Effect and Star Wars that I really enjoyed, and then elements of Dungeons and Dragons, like your spell casting, and like if someone's familiar with D&D, your typical classes, your monk, your barbarian, those kind of things, and I mashed them together to create a modern superhero campaign. Because realistically, in D&D, your characters are superheroes in that world. They're just not really considered super because in a D&D setting, you see a paladin, a cleric, a monk, you see them all over the place. So they're not really super because everybody's an adventurer. Whereas in our world, our characters are the only ones at first with those abilities, which makes them super.
I like that. I like it a lot. Yeah, you're kind of right. When you're in that fantasy world, those characters are regular. Yeah. But if you put them in like a modern setting, then they stand out.
Exactly.
Yeah, we did that. We mixed some genres with my Cover Darkness comic, which is kind of like horror and fantasy. And it's fun just to kind of, it's like two great things that taste great together, like chocolate and peanut butter. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, so can you talk a little bit about like the importance of having something that people can relate to? Like, because you're pulling from these different genres, and Dungeons and Dragons and games that people love, and you're putting that into your book. What do you think that does for the project?
So I'm a strong believer that more people will be interested in our titles if there is something that they can relate to or they can find accessible to them. If you read the comic, you'll see a lot of pop culture references in there. Like the other guys, they literally have the scene where, and it happened at the table. So this isn't something we had to write. We were coming to the end of the campaign, the building's blowing up around them. And I said, what do you guys do? And the two guys that couldn't fly or teleport look at each other and they say, aim for the bushes. And they even pulled up the video on their phones at the table and they played the song that was going on. So I had to make some edits there for, copyright purposes. But those are things that people can, without knowing my characters, you can read the book, see that scene. You're like, oh, I remember that scene. Now all of a sudden you're connected to the story because you remember the other guys and you connected with that. Well, now that same kind of feeling can happen in our book because there's that immediate, like, oh, I understand this and I can get where they're going with that. We talk about music. My favorite scene in one of our books is where the characters were talking about different songs that they wanted to ride into battle in with their van, and they couldn't pick a song. So when I was lettering the book and we were kind of, doing the final script on the book, we actually left by accident insert song where the song title was. And when we were reading through the script, we hit the insert song and we were laughing so hysterically because now all of a sudden we were forced to put a song there. And we just left it so that way a reader could go in and go, oh, that's my favorite song. And in the dialogue, they're arguing like, oh, this is the greatest song in American culture. And the other guy's like, I don't even know what insert song is. And a reader can fill that in, and that's amusing. and it takes them out of our story for a moment and makes them comfortable because it puts them into something that they can relate to. And I don't pretend that we're some big book and everyone knows who we are, so we're going to have this big draw. I like to have those small things that people can relate to. So whether it's a Dungeons and Dragons term like roll initiative, right? So we have that D&D person who is like really into it and go, oh, I know what roll initiative it means. Or even some of the weapons we use, like one of my characters in real life is a police officer who has, he has extensive firearms training. And early on in the book, he said, make sure my trigger finger, I want it like this, and I want to use this kind of gun. And he's very specific on those things. So I've had a few people that, pick up on the firearms that he uses and how he has good, what is it, a solid trigger finger. I don't shoot a lot of guns all the time, so I don't know all the terms for everything he uses. But I take into the account that that's something that he likes. So people that are, as into guns and firearms as he is, can relate to that in the character. Or, our Pokemon fans, one of our characters in real life loves Pokemon. So every once in a while, I see him pull a phone out and he's playing Pokemon Go. Given we don't call it Pokemon Go, but you know what it is just by looking at it. So I put all those elements in so that way people can relate to it and they can understand it. And if you're watching TV or if you're watching a movie, there's always that moment where you're like, click with it because it relates to you in some way, shape, or form. And I try to relate everything with a pop culture reference or something people can go, oh, I get it.
Yeah. I find like it's kind of essential to have these sort of hooks to, especially when you're a new creator, to get people interested in your work. I have a few books out and one of them is very original and it doesn't have that kind of, it's like this and this. I have a hard time explaining it, and it's my hardest sell for sure. Whereas the other ones where I can relate to other people easily, and they know exactly what it is, it sells all day. I'm interested in talking to you about the music aspect of your writing and stuff like that. Do you kind of have like a playlist for your songs as you're writing?
So I was actually signed to Sony Records for 6 years. Prior to this, I created music. So I have a lot of different stuff that I listen to, my friends' bands. I get inspired sometimes by even my previous songs because I'll be listening. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I wrote that song and it gave me a certain feeling. So I have it on a playlist. I'm a metalhead. I love heavy music, and I love different types of stuff. Usually when I'm drawing, especially, it's either metal music or I watch anime in the background or something with superheroes. Something that I've probably seen 50 times, so it doesn't distract me, but it's good background noise. I'm a type of person where I have to have 50 things going on at once. So whether it's music that I'm listening to, the TV, sometimes I'll be in the room with my kid while she's playing video games, or she's watching My Hero Academia or something, and I'm drawing. Always something that can relate back to either my creative mind or like the topic at hand, which is heroes.
Awesome. Yeah, I can relate too. I like to have some distractions on while I'm doing my work too. Can you tell me what the story is for Crit? Like, what is this adventure about?
So, like any good D&D adventure, you need a reason to bring everyone together. And if I rewind just a moment, the reason the whole thing came together was because me and my friends hadn't played D&D as a group in 10 years. And I wanted to get everyone back together. The reason we hadn't played in 10 years was because life happened, kids, wife, career, those things. So I was like, hey, you guys all take a new job at the same employer. You get this job, you're all in different departments, and day one during orientation, this thing happens, and I won't give it away because it's in the book. This thing happens, and they gain powers. Well, I am in the game, the CEO of this company, and my background is sales and marketing. Well, my character says, oh, wow, I have superheroes now. I'm going to market the next best thing in the world, which is going to be superheroes. But The problem is they don't act very super or hero. So the first arc, the first chapter of them is really struggling with handling the powers. They go through suit changes in the first two books because they don't like how they are in the beginning, and that relates back to D&D because the original classes that we played the first session changed from session 1 to session 2. And so now all of a sudden I depict the character changes with suit changes. So you get to kind of see the growth. And anyone that's ever played D&D knows generally by the second or third, game, you're making some adjustments. And, as the game progresses, you're seeing them struggle with these things that really can determine if they can call themselves superheroes or vigilantes. But the main premise is they work for this uber, corporate giant that wants them to do something, and they quickly realize there's this bigger thing at play, and they're like, okay, we need to get our stuff together because, we're not the only thing in the world. How do we handle this now? And that's where we're at with the current book that's on Kickstarter.
Can you tell me about some of the rewards that you're offering through the Kickstarter? What can people get? And I want to remind everyone, there's a link in the description of this video to Christopher Michail's C.R.I.T Kickstarter. So definitely click that link after you watch this.
So we go from just the bare bones digital copy of the book for $3 up to you can get the trade paperback, which is 6 books worth of content over 200 pages. There's that. There's all 6 issues. There's deluxe issues. We have a D&D starter kit, so you can play the first 5 levels of our characters, create your own heroes if you want to, and that comes with a custom D6 die. We also, you can't have a Kickstarter without having t-shirts, so of course there's t-shirts in there. And we do have one of our characters has a familiar, and he has a little cat with an he has a drinking problem. I'm going to tell you that. He drinks and smokes like a sailor, and he's our resident kitty in a top hat. He's one of the fan favorites. So we have a stuffed animal him on there as well as an add-on. There, if you're new to the series and you're just curious about it, you can get all the back issues in digital for $6. It's 6 issues, $6. It's I tried to make this very accessible to people. For physical copies, issue 5 is roughly 50 pages. That's an $8 book. If you go and pick up the previous books, they're on there as well. If you like single issues, I have them all. If you want to just do the trade paperback and have one big thick book, you can do that as well. I've put everything you can think of for readers in there, along with collectible items. So we have the big tier has the D&D stuff. It has all the books. It has the trade paperback. And it also has a miniature figure of Caliber, one of our characters, which is still being designed because the design I gave the 3D artist was very complicated. But it's going to be Caliber on the ground with his guns and bullet holes behind him. And that there's only 10 of those being made. And I think we only have like 3 of those left available. So we've got quite a bit to choose from. There's 5 days left on the campaign as of now. It ends Friday, April 1st at 8 p.m. And we've already unlocked 3 out of 4 stretch goals. So everybody gets posters, collector cards. We have a villains collector card kit that was unlocked. We have the mini posters, stickers, and pins are on there as well, which I just ordered those. So we'll have them before the campaign even ends. So there's quite a bit. I stacked this Kickstarter and I made it very accessible in price range because I know I'm broke. So I want to be able to buy this stuff. So I figured I wanted to make that available for everyone.
That sounds so awesome, dude. There's so much stuff and and very reasonably priced. It seems like this is great, dude. So Christopher Michail, I want to thank you for being on Inside Comics. And again, guys, there's a link in the description of this video. Go click that link and go and check out this Kickstarter. Until next time, peace.